Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, on Instagram Movies TV Mad X, and now on TikTok Mick Isn't Perfect, because guess what? Mick isn't perfect and he is fine with that. So big breaking DC Universe news as the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie finds its writer. We're going to read the details here, but I'm going to pre-warn you about something. There are red flags with this appointment, and we are going to get into it. Let me be absolutely clear as well. I try and be as positive about James Gunn's plans as I can be. I am somewhat excited about the future, but when I see an issue and a problem, I won't duck those issues. It doesn't mean I'm a flip-flop. I may be negative about this element of what Gunn's doing and tell you I'm excited about something else. That doesn't make me a flip-flop. It just makes me honest. You should try it. DC movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow finds its writer in Anna Nogueira. Exclusive. The feature is part of the first wave of offerings from the James Gunn and Peter Safran-led DC Studios. This is by top journalist in Hollywood, Boris Kitt. Anna Nogueira, the actress and playwright who is now making forays into screenwriting, has been tapped to pen Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, a standalone feature centered on the Kryptonian cousin of Supergirl being developed by DC Studios. Now, this is a very interesting situation because not only is she a playwright, which I have no issue considering I'm an amateur playwright myself, writing, plays and acting in plays and directing plays with an amateur dramatic society in my theatre here in Ayia Napa. So I don't have an issue with this. Also, she's an actor. So could it be that she could write and play Supergirl as well? Is that a possibility considering she's an actor? But we'll get into the details of this because the red flags are underneath this. No director is attached and Nogueira's deal only recently closed. Right, so there's no director at this point. James Gunn has confirmed that he is now looking for a director. The project is actually a redo of Nogueira. The writer was quietly hired to pen a Supergirl movie in 2022 when Warner Brothers was developing the project as a spin-off of The Flash. That in post-production, Flash featured Sasha Calle as the heroine, and the hope was to launch another DC film franchise. So this is where the red flag for me is. Hamada got this writer, the same writer that's going to write Woman of Tomorrow, to write a Sasha Calle-led Supergirl film. So what I'm asking here is, what has actually changed if we're bringing in someone that Hamada had already brought in for a Supergirl movie? Those hopes were seemingly dashed when Gunn and Safran were brought in to oversee a recognized DC arm. That project was tossed as the new execs focused on creating a brand new slate, separate from former DC Films boss Walter Hamada's vision. But is it separate from his vision when they're using the same writer to write a Supergirl movie that he brought in the first place? That's something I'm simply starting to doubt. Early this year, Supergirl was revealed to be part of that slate as a project without any connection to the Flash movie. Rather, it was now connected in title and story to a comic book miniseries written by Tom King that was published in 2021 and 2022 and sought to redefine the character as something more than just a girl version of Superman. So, I've never read a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Apparently it's a really good version, and Crypto is part of that story. Something else I kind of have issues with, taking Superman's pet and making it Supergirl's pet. But that's very much like what these male feminists do. And Tom King is absolutely, a very woke writer. He's a talented woke writer, but I'm not going to cast aspersions on this story because I have no idea. But what I have heard of this story, it is at least very interesting. Superman is a guy sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, where Supergirl, in this story, she is a character raised on a chunk of Krypton. Gunn explained in a video released on Twitter at the time, she watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way. So she's a much more jaded character, which I like. The comic featured Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, who, along with Superdog Crypto, gets caught up in a young alien girl's galaxy-spanning revenge quest. DC Studios is keeping the project plot under wraps. But we know. They're basically going to adapt the comic book, so we know the plot. Gunn and Safran liked the work Nogueira had done on the previous Supergirl project and quietly brought her back, even giving her an overall DC writing deal. Again, that's somewhat problematic based on one script. There's no question that I'm sure that, this writer is very talented. I'm sure she is. But for me, from Hamada's point of view, I think this was a diversity hire. And I think this is their first diversity hire. This is what they're looking to do. I don't mind diversity hires. If the diversity hires they're bringing in, like anybody else they bring in, by the way, it has to be the same for everyone, is talented and deserve to have this opportunity. So it's interesting that she's a playwright actor as well. It makes her very unique and different. I hope we don't hear the same woke crap within the marketing and how women have it harder than men and, Superman's a tosser and Supergirl's much better and all that crap. Let's hope we don't go that direction. Let's see what happens there. Nogueira may be best known for a stint, oh dear, I didn't know this, on the CW's Vampire Diaries with acting credits including The Michael J. Fox Show and the recent Star series Hightown. So she's acted in this stuff, not written it. Okay, fair enough, I take back what I said. But she has also built a thriving writing career. Her play Which Way to the Stage debuted off Broadway in 2022, and she's working on an adaptation of author Alice Solar's Kim's short story, Mothers Lock Up Your Daughters. That does sound very third wave feminist, doesn't it? Oh dear. Set up at Warner's with 21 laps producing. So that's very, 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 very interesting, everyone. So where are the problems here? The problems here for me is that she was brought in by Hamada. That's a red flag because is this really James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DC universe? Well, Peter Safran was very much involved in the Hamadaverse and he just happens to be involved in this new universe. He is the connection, everyone. Proof that nothing has actually changed. Where is Emmerich? Is he still there? We know that Hamada's gone off, I think, to Universal. So he's not directly there, but he could still be connected to these DC plans. It's interesting to me and quite worrying that they're keeping someone that he brought on. Now, again, let me be absolutely clear. I don't know how good of a playwright she is and what her take of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is. I can only be cynical and think it's quite a feminist one because this is where Hollywood is today. They have this trend in Hollywood today that if the movie is female-centric, it has to be directed by a woman. The score has to be composed by a woman. It has to be written by a woman and everything else. Now, what about Sasha Calle? This is an interesting situation because apparently she had some conversations with James Gunn after the Flash movie release. We haven't heard anything since. That's an interesting situation considering that Anna, the woman who's now tapped to write this film, was also tapped to write her, Sasha Calle's Supergirl movie. So does this mean that Sasha could still play Supergirl? I think there's a high probability. what do I think about Sasha Calle as Supergirl? I have no problem with Sash whatsoever. I think she did, despite the issues I've got with the Flash movie, I don't think she was one of the issues, although her performance was hacked to pieces like the rest of the movie. So there is a high probability that Sasha Calle will continue to play Supergirl in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Again, more signs that we haven't moved on from the Hamadaverse, that this is simply just a reworking of the Hamadaverse. Can it work? Of course it can. If you make a good movie, if this playwright actor is, as good as they say she is. Now, why I've got this, now I know that this writer is also an actor, I've got this feeling that they could actually cast her as Supergirl or as a character in the film. Don't be surprised, because she's an actor, she may get a role. But I don't know how old she is. If she's age perfect, she could actually be writing this and playing the lead role as well. It's very, very interesting. But yes, I do see red flags here. I do see some problems, because if you're using Sasha Calle, you're using the writer Hamada brought on. So for me, there are red flags. Do I know if this film's going to be good or bad? I don't. I hope it's good. I want DC to thrive. I want DC to win. I'm not locked into the Snyderverse. I loved it, but I'm not locked into it. I don't sit there wanting Gunn to fail just because it's not Snyder. I'm predominantly a DC fan, but when something needs calling out, we must call it out. We can't be on the good ship shill and just misinform our audiences. You are my audience. You come here because I'm straightforward and I'm honest, and I don't tickle you under the chin and tummy and say, there, everything is going to be all right. David Zaslav has run Warner Brothers Discovery like a kamikaze pirate ship mission. It's been absolutely ridiculous. Now, on the whole Roadrunner versus Acme situation, a week ago, he was going to shelve it for a tax write-off. Then directors wouldn't take Warner Brothers Discovery's call. They were saying, what if this happens to us, as I predicted. Now they're shopping it around to Amazon and Netflix. No shit, Sherlock. You can't keep on shelving people's movies. It's ridiculous. Zaslav trying to save, a financially struggling company. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, the sooner he sells, he's legally allowed to sell this studio, the better. Because AT&T did a shit job, but it's looking like AT&T did a better job than him. But this studio has been drowning since AT&T bought it, and it hasn't got any better with Zaslav. Now, one of his biggest decisions, of course, is to bring Gunn and Safran to run DC Studios. The slate we've got so far at least looks interesting. But when I see this, and when I see that they're pretty much giving a writer that Hamada brought on for a previous Supergirl film an overall DC Studios deal, I do get concerned. But Mick, you don't know if she's any good. I've already said that. I don't. All I can speak on is what I see. And, when I saw initially on the headline, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow finds its writer, I was excited. I'm happy this is moving forward. But how forward is this moving? What can they actually do? Will this movie start production while Superman Legacy is in production too? Could that also be the plan, to have them shooting around the same time? Well, I don't think they can shoot around the same time because they haven't got a director. Pre-production hasn't started. But what may happen is, while Superman Legacy is being shot, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow may begin being shot halfway through of Superman Legacy's production as well. Don't be surprised if we get a post-credit scene of the brand new Supergirl in Superman Legacy. That's what it's called, right? I think there could be some connection. So that's very, very interesting. But I am excited that they're adapting Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. It's a very, very interesting story. Look, I've been in love with the character of Supergirl since Helen Slater's movie. I know, it's an utterly flawed, problematic movie. There's no logic to why I love it, but I do. I love it. And I fell in love with the character. I was very excited the CW were doing an Arrowverse Supergirl show. It started off kind of well, but then it became very woke, very feminist, and very, very anti-men, which was a shame because I love the character. I thought Melissa Benoist was a great Supergirl, even though she was screaming feminist mantra as well. But I think Mel is a great actor. I really do, and I think that she did a really good job. You know, so I don't think she was a bad Supergirl, but it's the current Hollywood mindset that's the problem. And this can't be the case with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. If you want people to love this movie, if you want girls to look up to this character, that's great. But you're going to need more than girls to support this movie if you want it to make money. So it's going to be a very, very interesting project. A project, I hope, that is good. That the red flags, you know, that I'm seeing are just part of my paranoia. But I always told you that Gunn was very much part of the Hamada-verse, a big supporter of Hamada. You know, Hamada was part of the reason that Gunn came in to do the Suicide Squad in the first place. And it's clear he doesn't want to dump a lot of the stuff that he brought in. So it's going to be interesting if people like, you know, Zachary Levi have a part to play as Shazam, considering he's Saffron's friend. Don't be surprised if Zachary Levi's and Asher Angel's Shazam cameo now and again. I think that's what you may get there. He won't get any more films. It's clear that there isn't a hunger and an appetite for Shazam movies, but don't be surprised if Levi keeps his role as Shazam. Personally, I don't have any issue with that. I like Zachary Levi. I know he was laughing and mocking the chance of the Snyder Cut being released. He was foolish. He does speak before he thinks. But I did love him in Chuck. I did love him in Tangled. So I don't have any problem with him cameoing as Shazam in the universe, which I suspect is exactly what's going to happen. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, if it's faithful to the comic, has a lot of potential. Not that I've read it, but I've read the bullet points of the graphic novel. And for me, it's a very interesting story that she was brought up on a rock. She didn't have the love, the loving life as a young person that Cal did. So that's interesting as well, that she's going to help someone from another planet, looking for revenge. And that's an interesting story as well. Despite Tom King's ideology, he's a very, very good writer. He's a very good comic book writer. And I like to be balanced in these conversations because I don't necessarily think being woke is always a bad thing. By the way, woke used to mean good. It meant that you cared about the world that you lived in. And now it means something derogatory because the right wing have taken that to, kind of poo-poo on any kindness that's exposed. But also, wokeness can be bad. There's good woke and bad woke. New Hollywood are mainly bad woke. Let's look at the Marvels, for example, where now we know that no women, barely any girls, went to see and support that movie. But why? It's the Hollywood ideology to throw, to throw minorities on the screen and women and say, there you go, it's good to be seen, without doing any of the groundwork. The problem is that Hollywood haven't met any women outside of LA, so they don't get it. And here's the thing. Fortunately or unfortunately, communities are based on individual people. Not everyone's the same. Just because you're a woman, it doesn't mean you have the same mindset as LA women. And thank fuck for that. So they have no idea how to represent women and minorities as individuals and characters in their own rights. It's why gay guys didn't go and see the gay rom-com Bros, because you can't just throw a bunch of gay men on the screen and hope for the best. You've got to do the same due diligence in your writing, in your characterizations, as you do for the straight white people, right? But they don't do that, which proves they're more bigoted than the fans they accuse of being bigoted. Because if you only brought in talented people instead of members of your own family, then maybe Hollywood wouldn't be in the mess it's in today. It's time to go back to film schools and start recruiting new talent. Anyway, back to DC Universe and back to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. There's a lot of positive aspects to this. I hope that Anna is a very talented writer. And I hope she does a good job. I absolutely do. I have no personal issues against Anna doing this gig, but I do have concerns. And as a fan, I have every right to have these concerns. As a content creator, a very unsuccessful content creator, I agree. I can't be asked to promote. I can't be asked to edit my videos. I just speak and then I fuck off again. And that's what I do. And I'm well aware that maybe if I made more of an effort, I could be successful, but I don't care. But it's my responsibility to the 30 to 50, sometimes even 100 views that I get, that I'm very direct with you and I'm very honest. And that's very, very important to me, that I portray my opinion, my true opinion, that I'm not scared to tell you what I think. If that means you unsubscribe, that you never watch me again because you can't handle opposing views, maybe I'm better off that I don't have your views. Some of you will be very excited about the DC Universe and will just shill anything you hear. And that's great. What I've got to do as a content creator and someone involved in this industry who knows where the bodies are buried is that I give you all the facts. That Anna, this writer, was originally going to write the Sasha Calle starring Supergirl movie. And to me, it's a bit weird we're using the same person as Hamada did. And that brings into question how different is what Gunn's doing, what Hamada was doing. Because we've already seen the problems of the Hamada verse, the problems of, basically allowing The Rock to take Black Adam away from Shazam. We could have had 3 Shazam epic movies with Black Adam and Shazam, in a great trilogy. And he allowed The Rock to do whatever he wanted. I do think The Rock did a great job with the Black Adam movie. But again, it was a film nobody had an appetite to go and see. That's where the problem is there. Shazam! Fury of the Gods betrayed everything that was built up in the first movie. That's why it failed. Blue Beetle, again, was so busy stereotyping the Latino community, which they think is inclusive and representative. It was an absolute insult to the Latinx community as far as I'm concerned. And the Flash movie could have been something special, a great adaptation of Flashpoint. Instead, it was an utter mess. There were some good things in there. It wasn't all bad. Keaton was outstanding, and there were some good things. And Ezra Miller, despite the problems of the actor outside, off the screen, they were able to play 2 different entities of the same character, and they did it so well. And I said that in my non-spoiler review, and I stand by it, but the film flopped, it was cut to pieces, and it was a disgrace how they put together that film and lied that it was one of the best comic book movies. That's what James Gunn said, right? Remember that? James Gunn said that the Flash movie was one of the best comic book movies he'd ever seen. James clearly lied. Unless he really believes shit like that, and shitty VFX like that is the best film they ever saw. Again, I said it at the time, I have great sympathy for Andy Muschietti. In a way, he deserved his reward of getting to direct Brave and the Bold. But there you go again, another Hamada director getting a gig. So we got Hamada, we got Anna, who Hamada brought in to do his Supergirl movie, doing this Supergirl movie. So can you see the red flags? Can you see them? Can you see the problem with what's going on here? We're getting a lot of Hamada-verse people still being involved because it's not really James Gunn making these decisions. No, this is Safran. This is Peter Safran, who was connected to the Hamada-verse. So he obviously decided that Andy Muschietti should direct Brave and the Bold. He's clearly decided that Anna, I keep on calling her by her first name because I can't pronounce her second name, so why murder it, right? I've already murdered it a couple of times. He's clearly decided that Anna should do this Supergirl movie. So all these connections from the Hamadaverse, but your one key connection is Peter Safran. So with him there, you were always going to get this. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But when I see these things, I've got to call it out. I said months ago that the people who ran WB Pictures and old DC are still there, hiding in plain sight. And nothing I'm seeing here doubts that. It's a little bit problematic, but this could all end okay. For example, it's pretty clear to me the reason that the Roadrunner versus Looney Tunes movie having a tax write-off, why they changed their mind about that. It probably wasn't because directors were refusing to talk to them. It's because James Gunn got pissed off with Zaslav because he produced that movie and he co-wrote that movie, right? It's basically his baby. So he maybe even threatened to quit as co-CEO of DC Studios. We'll never know what happened behind the scenes, but what we do know is Gunn didn't publicly respond to that movie originally being shelved, because I was expecting some bullshit from Gunn. Oh yeah, we worked so hard, but yeah, it had to be done, blah. But he didn't do that. He kept quiet, and when Gunn keeps quiet, it means he disagrees. In a lot of ways, normally, Gunn isn't a bullshitter. That's why I was so stunned and upset that he lied about enjoying the Flash movie. But as co-CEO of DC Studios, he had very little choice. He was asked to do that. He was asked to, shield the movie. But we all know that James Gunn didn't truly love the Flash movie. So I kind of forgive him for that, because really, he had no choice. As I say, I love Supergirl. I love the idea of the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic, if it's faithfully adapted. And I hope it's a great movie. I want Gunn's DC Universe to succeed. As I said on the top of the show, I don't sit there praying for it to fail so Snyder can come back. That's not the way I want Snyder to come back. I want Snyder to have his own corner, maybe at Netflix. I think Gunn can, provide some excellent insight and do some great things. Personally, I think Gunn should have his corner, Snyder should have his corner, and Todd Phillips should have his corner, and Matt Reeves should have his corner, and they all just do their random movies, rather than having cinematic universes, which I believe have had their day. But who knows? There is a belief out there, with pundits and journalists, that Gunn can turn this around and make a lot of money for DC Studios. And, the proof of the pudding is within the eating. So I'm not going to sit here and say to you, oh yeah, it's definitely going to work, what you're talking about, haters. And I'm not going to say it's definitely going to fail, what you're talking about, shills. I'm not going to say either, because I don't know. What I do know, from the bottom of my heart, is that I'm a DC man. I love DC. I live and breathe for DC. And, my heart broke that the Snyderverse didn't succeed like WB wanted it to. That the Snyderverse was cut short, because I think those films were beautiful, and Snyder deserved to fully tell his stories, and someone else could have come in, which was the original plan. It didn't happen. It was an utter mess from a studio perspective, especially with what happened with Justice League. Absolutely despicable. Now we have Gunn coming in. But to me, it's really more of the same in terms of the people who are running the original DCEU, who took it over from Snyder. And that's the Walter Hamada perspective. Even though he's not at the studio anymore, a lot of the stuff he implemented is still there, because his number one man, Peter Safran, is still there. Who's truly running DC Studios? Is it James Gunn and Peter Safran, or is Peter Safran making the real decisions? It's interesting. I think in a storytelling sense, James Gunn is very much in charge, but in terms of kind of making big decisions like bringing Anna on, who was originally tapped to do Hamada's Supergirl movie, I think these are Saffron decisions. I think any decision that brings back anyone that Hamada recruited are Peter Saffron decisions, and that's an interesting thing. Let's see if it works out. I hope Anna is a very talented playwright and actor. I've never even seen her act before, but it will be interesting. But two questions I've brought up today are very, very interesting as well. Will Anna, the actor-playwright who's writing Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, play a part as an actor in the film? And will Sasha Calle continue to play Supergirl? I think there's a high probability of that.